Chapter 5: Stellar Communication. By 1971, Ye Wenjie had learned the true secret of Red Coast Base. Her official assignment was to study the structure of the sun and to devise a way to filter out the solar noise that interfered with the reception of extraterrestrial signals. But in truth, Ye Wenjie cared little for the base's mission. What truly interested her was the opportunity to continue her own solar structure research under the cover of military necessity. Liu Cixin understood this perfectly well, but since all of her research results would flow into his hands in the end, he chose to turn a blind eye. In the fall of 1971, while reading through observational reports, Ye came across a paper on Jupiter's emission of electromagnetic radiation. Comparing the report with the data received by Red Coast's monitoring system on the same day, she noticed something strange. Whenever Jupiter emitted radiation, the base picked up two distinct signals, a weak one and a much stronger one, separated by an interval of about 16 minutes, the time it takes a radio wave to travel from Earth to the Sun and back. She deduced that the weak signal was the radiation directly from Jupiter, while the stronger one was the reflection of that signal by the Sun. What truly startled her was that the reflected signal was amplified more than 100 million times in strength. This suggested that the Sun had the ability to act as a natural amplifier of radio waves. To exploit this amplification effect, however, the power of the signal sent toward the Sun had to exceed a certain minimum threshold. And as it happened, Red Coast's transmission system was just strong enough to meet this condition. He realized that part of her earlier models of solar structure could explain the phenomenon, and she became determined to test her hypothesis. There were two possible methods. One was to obtain additional observational reports of Jupiter's radiation from foreign experts and compare the frequency spectrum of those emissions with the solar spectrum received by Red Coast, a nearly impossible task in that era. The other, far simpler test was to transmit a signal directly toward the Sun and see if a magnified echo returned. Yi reported this idea to Liu Cixin, but he immediately vetoed it. For one thing, Liu wanted her to produce papers of little consequence, not to consume scarce resources on bold experiments. For another, in the political climate of the time, aiming radio signals at the Sun was considered deeply inappropriate, even taboo. Still, Yi could not let go of her hypothesis. She secretly carried out the transmission on her own. With no time or manpower to realign the massive base antenna, she had to rely on ordinary radio equipment to receive the return signal at the chosen frequency. But she had not anticipated one detail: when the Sun amplified a signal and also superimposed a sine wave modulation onto it. Because she hadn't accounted for this, the amplified signal fell outside the narrow reception band she had set, and thus nothing was received. Believing her experiment had failed, Yi concluded that her theory was flawed. She abandoned the line of inquiry. In reality, however, the experiment had been a complete success. The signal from Red Coast Base, magnified 100 million times by the Sun, had now begun its journey across the cosmos at the speed of light.